Shredder's quiet.
Yeah, a little too quiet.
Well, that was easy.
Yeah, a little too easy. Yeah.
Look, it's Raph. Yeah, a little too Raph.
You guys, knock it off.
So I'm dressed up in a not very good Ninja Turtles costume. I have the hood from Arrow, from my Arrow costume.
There you go.
And then I have these wonderful glasses that are like a turtle bandana.
Where did those come from? Did you just have those?
No, I got them from the internet. They were cheap.
I was like, dear Lord, was that just like in one of those plastic containers like we used to keep our action figures in back in the day? And you were just like, oh, hey.
Yeah, it looked cool. I used it on my prop back here. That's like a training dummy, and I have him dressed up in green sweats, and I've got like a bow staff behind him, even though this is red, which is the wrong color for the bow staff, but it's all I had to work with. So I had this on him during the episode, but I just wanted to wear it because
that's awesome. Cool. I mean, most of us don't just have a bow staff laying around, so that's pretty cool that you were able to even put that together.
It's actually for painting. It's like an extension for a foam roller, so that way you can like roll the paint on the walls. That's so it's not really a bow staff either.
We could still like crack it on people, you know.
You could.
I don't know. Your wife does jujitsu and martial arts and stuff, and I was like, maybe she has a bow staff. I don't know.
Her weapons are her feasts.
Oh,
these are my weapons. So I also have Raphael here, who is sitting next to me, and this is the kind that unfortunately I don't have it anymore. But you would put it was almost like a zip tie. You would put in here, and you would pull it, and when you did that, it would like be somebody talking that's supposed to be Raph, making sounds and saying catchphrases and stuff. I have no idea if this still works, and even I can even find that thing that goes in here or where it even goes.
I don't know.
I
feel like it was connected. It was like a little thing you just pulled on it, and then as it goes back in, it generates sound.
And then Shredder here,
I feel like that is the
things in his arms that you're supposed to put, and then you like crank this little thing on his side.
Oh.
And then it spins and makes the sound, but I don't know what it's supposed to do. Like, why does he have flippy things in his arms? I guess I never really thought about that.
I mean, isn't he supposed to have like armor plates there?
Yeah.
I feel like that's what goes.
He almost looks like he came out of the Matrix because he's got the little plugs in his arms.
I was going to say that's the OG Shredder action figure, but if he has special features, probably not. So
he's also got like a little hole here in the top of his hand for another weapon
weird.
Too. So and then he's got like an open hand here that can't really hold anything, but he can. And then you could just watch me make them fight.
I had a lot of Ninja Turtles when I was a kid.
Baxter Stockman, I had him, and I have his bug weapons, but I can't find his action figure. I don't know what happened to it.
Oh, that sucks. Oh, that's cool though. Yeah, so if you guys in the audience don't know, Baxter Stockman mutates himself into a fly
bug guy.
Big
eyes and
yeah. So he has bug weapons. There you go.
He does, yeah, of course. He's a bug guy. His bug weapons makes perfect sense.
So I didn't know most of what I knew about the Ninja Turtles coming into this was from either the cartoon, which I wasn't allowed to watch as a kid because my mom was like, "Oh, that's too violent." Even though I think if she watched it, she would have been like, "This is harmless." And just seeing the action figures and a few comic books when I was a kid. I think the movies are really the form of media that I grew up with that I remember the Turtles from the most, especially the first two. So most of my impressions and knowledge about Ninja Turtles comes from that and or video games, honestly.
Yeah, I think I was into it for a while as a kid because, being born in 82 and then they came about in 84 and then the movies in 1990, it was like just the right time to grow up with the Ninja Turtles. And it was like, you buy your kid whatever's popular at the time for their birthday party. Well, I would get Ninja Turtle stuff. So that's how I came about with these. I think I used to have more, but it's been a while, so I lost them over the years. But anyway, so I think there was a certain point where either I started to outgrow them or I started to get into other comics or whatever it was that basically, and then they would come out with like an animated movie or some like weird thing where they're like super huge and they look weird and they look evil almost, and the animation's
Yeah.
terrible. And like I think there was a time where I went, oh, I haven't seen anything turtles in a while. I got into other stuff, and then that came out and I was like, I think I'm done with the turtles. That was just a kid thing, and haven't really picked them up since. But I think
Right.
with the video game coming out, Cowabunga collection, that's got like NES games, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, arcade games on it, like
Hmm.
it just seemed like it would be fun to read a Ninja Turtle comic, because I don't know that I've read any of the comics, other than seeing the media. So I thought it would
Right.
be fun. And in the course of doing this episode, like I really enjoyed reading the comics and like getting into, like we talked about in the episode, the differences between each turtle and how they are
Hmm.
completely unique, but then you put them together and they work together as a family, as a group. And there aren't really a lot of successful superhero stories where you have a group that works together cohesively and stays together for the long term. I mean, you have Fantastic Four,
Right.
you have Ninja Turtles, and like what other groups do you have that, like Avengers and X-Men and stuff, but members
Their
come and go
roster
all the time.
rotates, yeah,
Yeah.
all the time, and same for the Justice League. Like their roster rotates. The Teen Titans, the Suicide Squad, all those
Hmm.
team books. It's usually like a new writer comes on, or somebody decides they don't like a character and they write them off, and somebody new comes in. So, yeah, this is pretty unique within comicdom. I think it's also unique in that the Ninja Turtles were primarily a comic for a good amount of time before they were anything else. But most people that know of the Ninja Turtles do not know them as that.
Hmm.
So it was kind of good for us to cover their comics a little bit, because that really is where it all started.
Yeah. And I did a lot of research into their background and history, obviously knowing some of it, but not really, seeing it as an adult, obviously looking through it as a through a different lens as well.
Yeah.
And I found it really interesting in the iterations that it went through. And it was really a product of the 80s, and it went through the same things that a lot of other products that came out about in that time went through. So,
Hmm.
but starting chronologically, so originally the comic was conceived as a joke. Eastman drew a turtle standing on its hind legs, wearing a mask with nunchucks strapped to its arms, and wrote Ninja Turtle on the top of the page. Then, in typical bro fashion, his friend Laird tried to outdo him with a more refined version. And then Eastman's like, okay, well, I'll one up you. So he drew 4 turtles, each armed with ninja style weapons. And then Laird's like, okay, fine, I'll take that. And I'll make a group shot of them in ink. And then he added Teenage Mutant to the Ninja Turtles title. And that's really how it started. It was just, 2 guys in their apartment. They started this comic studio mirage that didn't really exist. And they liked comics, so they wanted to come up with their own idea. And they're like, hey, these turtles, seem like a cool idea. Maybe we'll go with this and see what happens. So they created their backstory really as a parody on Daredevil. So you have the turtles that are altered by radioactive material, just like Daredevil was. The turtles are trained to be ninjas and by their sensei Splinter, who is a play on Daredevil sensei Stick. And then their mortal enemy is an organization called the Foot, which is a play on the group in Daredevil known as the Hand. So different body part there. And in Daredevil #1, Matt Murdock sees a truck about to run over an old man. So he knocks the man out of the way, gets struck in the face by a radioactive canister, blinds him, but it enhances his other senses to superhuman levels. In Turtles #1, the same thing happens, but this time the canister bounces off the boy's head and it smashes into a bowl of baby turtles that I guess was nearby, and they fall along with the canister into an open manhole. And then, for whatever reason, Splinter was down there. He finds them and he gets mutated as well. So it was
Right.
literally like, well, what if the canister that hit Matt Murdock and blinded him and turned him into Daredevil hit him on the head and landed in some turtles instead? And that was their, great backstory for this new comic that they came up with. So,
So, what I love about this is that I have known that that's the turtles' origin for years. I've known about Splinter, I've known about the radioactive waste, all that stuff. Never made the Daredevil connection until I actually looked it up, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. Um, if you're not looking for it, I guess it's not obvious. But once you know, it's completely obvious.
yeah.
It's like, oh, Splinter, Stick, and all of those things. Um, wasn't there something about Splinter got his skills? He was a rat that imitated his master Oroku Saki, or not Oroku, Komodo Yoshi's moves in his cage or something. I remember seeing some old panel of Splinter as a
Mhm.
rat imitating kung fu moves in
That
his
was
rat
in
cage.
the 90s movies. So they had puppeteers with this like
Okay.
rat in a, it would look almost like a bird cage hanging from the ceiling. And so then like so he's mimicking the moves of his master, and then the guy who's to become Shredder comes in and kills his master.
Oh,
And so
okay.
Splinter's fighting back, and he slices, I think, his ear, and not his
Mm.
eye, but his takes a piece of his ear. And they reveal that later when Shredder takes off his helmet, and he's like, "You're the rat who tore off my ear," or something. But yeah, that was in the movie. I don't know if that was in their original comics or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Splinter needs some kind of grounding in martial arts for it to make sense that he taught these turtles the
Hmm.
art of ninjutsu.
Yeah,
Let's call the
exactly.
whole thing off.
Ba-dum-ts. All right. So what started as an independent publication quickly developed into a global mass media franchise and fixture of American popular culture. So in 1987, Eastman and Laird licensed the characters to Playmates Toys, where about $1.1 billion US dollars of Turtles toys were sold between 1988 and 1992, making them the third best-selling toy figures ever at the time. So that's how you would make money with something, is you would have action figures, and people would buy action figures for their kids. You would make these additional sets like the what is it, the Toys Who Made Us
Yeah. That
show.
documentary, they play up some drama between people sometimes, but they do the thing where they have actors come in and do a dramatization of
Mm,
what happened between the people,
the
to kind of
falling out, or yeah.
spice it up. But 1.1 billion is an insane number of money in 1988 for them
Hmm.
to, I mean, even across 4 years, that is insane. It's no wonder that we both had these figures as kids. I mean, I
Yeah.
almost wonder if there's any kid in America, that was like, lower middle class, or even above that a little bit, that didn't have at least one Ninja Turtle figure. I mean, they're to say that they're part of American pop culture. They've been around since the 80s and they've basically never been gone. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and they changed a lot. So the
Right.
original iteration in the original comic, it may have started off as a joke or parody, but it was actually for adults. The turtles were dicing up enemies while spouting the occasional curse word, and Casey Jones would actually beat down even low-level crooks with baseball bats and hockey sticks. And I imagine this being a lot like the Daredevil show on Netflix, where it's like there's just, blood, and people get punched in the face over and over,
Right.
and it's just like all this blood, and their faces are swelling up, and like, to imagine the Ninja Turtles doing that now seems very shocking. But
It
that's
does.
but if they're going off of Daredevil, then Daredevil is
Yeah.
very violent and bloody, so that would make
Hmm.
sense. But what happened was, and this happened, I think, with a lot of properties, where they wanted to make these action figures, and in order to sell the action figures, they created an animated cartoon, which would allow
Hmm.
them to sell more toys. So really, the cartoon was just for marketing. It was almost like a giant advertisement to get kids to say, "Hey, this cartoon is fun." And then when they then their parents are going to want to buy the action figures and the play sets and the turtle van, and you have to make up all of these grandiose things, so that way you have to
Hmm.
buy multiple pieces to get the entire set. And it's funny because that happens today in a lot of things, and especially in electronic medium, where you have a video game, and then you have to download downloadable content or DLC to get another outfit for a character, and to get another
Right.
weapon, and to get another level, and to get this and that. And they were doing that with toys back in the 80s, where it was like, okay, your kid, they need to buy the glasses sold separately, and then they need to buy the shirt sold separately, and then they need to buy the bandanas sold separately, and then you collect them all, and then you're a turtle. But then you need
Right.
to buy this, and it would just keep on going. And that's how they made their all of that money.
There were so many Turtles action figures. I mean,
Oh
I
yeah.
can't even remember how many, but I mean, and from my understanding, a lot of these did come from the comics originally. They had just been kind of toyified or kidified a little
Hmm.
bit more. There was some guy that was like a Triceratops, Triceraton or something. I kind of remember him. And then I remember Leatherhead the alligator, and there were a couple of other ones
Yeah.
that I remember. But there was like, if you could think of that animal, there was like a mutant version of it that was supposed to fight the turtles. You know,
Right. It's
so
kind of like the particle accelerator on the Flash, like on the CW show, where
oh
basically
yeah,
you just take flashbacks back to the particle accelerator. Oh, so and so was standing nearby when it went off, and now they have this power. So and so was buying ice cream at the time, and now they have powers. It's like, well,
or
when the ooze
Smallville
hit,
and Kryptonite.
yeah, so and so got exposed to kryptonite and now they became this hero. It's like so and so got exposed to the ooze that, there was another
Right.
canister and, here and there. But they, in order to make the animated show to do the marketing, they had to pass censors, which censorship was very
Mhm.
strict on kids properties back then, so they had to soften the turtles up. So that's where we get the wisecracking jokers obsessed with pizza. Shredder's a typical bumbling cartoon villain. We've got the robots instead of people for the Foot Clan, and instead of curse words they started shouting easily marketable catchphrases like turtle power and cowabunga, which actually they got sued for because there was an earlier property that was using that as a catchphrase, and they were suing them for millions of dollars, and they ended up settling for like 50,000 or something like that.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So they, and the censorship is actually the reason that all of the turtles have different colors, because in the original they were all red.
Mhm.
They all had
Yeah,
red
I do
bandanas,
remember that.
and the distinction was the weapons that they used. But in the animated series they gave them, different colors displayed on their mask and their elbow and knee pads: blue for Leo, orange for Michelangelo, red for Raphael, and purple for Donatello. And then they also wore belt buckles that had their first initial in it. So that way, in case you were like, who's the red guy again? Oh, it's R, Raphael. Okay. So that made them easily identifiable. That way you could make sure you have all the turtles in the set.
And that's really the iconic look of them to me. I mean, and that's probably going to come across to some hardcore comic book fans. It's like, no, the original where they all were red is the true Ninja Turtles or whatever. But yeah, I remember seeing the initial on the belt and all that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I have so much nostalgia for that era. And I didn't see much of the animated series, but I did get a hold of one of the early comics when I was a kid, and I do remember it being very violent. It had
Mm.
to have been a reprint because I think the original TMNT #1 is worth like millions of
Oh, yeah.
dollars or something, because it was one of those things that it was like self-published by them, and then it blew up into this huge thing, so nobody was collecting that. Nobody was going like, oh sweet, the new Marvel property that came out is got a new #1. It was, you know it kind of
Mm-hmm.
flew into the radar. So if you've got one of those, like, you're set.
Yeah, it's probably worth a lot. Well, and it's funny too because, you know, because a corporation was so good at its marketing strategy and made a ton of money, we now have this nostalgia for these characters and all of this merchandise and stuff that we've held on to because of capitalism, basically.
Basically, yeah.
I wonder if they had not made the toys in the animated series, would the comic have been popular enough on its own that we would have had, it
Mm,
continuing for a while, and then, kind of like Marvel, like we've had, or DC or any of the properties really, but we've had live action movies and TV shows in the past. Like we
mhm.
basically take a really muscular guy, paint him green, and that's our Hulk. Back in the day, so they did try to make live action properties of those, but it wasn't really successful until the 2000s and after, with everything that we have now. So would the turtles
Right.
have been the same, where we have years and years and years of comics, and then maybe 1999 2000 we get a new movie and it's different? Would it have been successful? I mean, who knows?
I
But
don't know.
it was very successful, and it seemed like it definitely peaked in the 90s, and then just now with the variations and the new, like, oh, let's add a new character and let's change this, and all the hardcore fans are like, no, it's the four turtles and it's Bebop and Rocksteady and it's the Alopex, get that out of here, that's not.
Yeah.
But it's the comics have to change because you can't tell the same story over and over and over for
Mhm.
50 years. So but
I was really intrigued by the original characters in this story, and that was something that I was like, yeah, let's do more of that, because
Mhm.
expand the cast. Why not? Like, what? I have nothing against that. I um I will say that reading the micro series definitely made me interested to get into the book proper a little
Yeah.
bit more and see more about some of these guys, like who's old Hob? Why does he have a beef with the Turtles where he
Mhm.
kidnaps, or maybe he has a beef with Splinter or something? I don't know.
Yeah, I was just glad to not see grotesque versions that don't resemble, the childhood heroes that I grew up with.
Yeah.
And I think IDW did a good job with this. And this is volume 1, which only had the 4 turtles. Volume 2 has a one shot for Splinter, Shredder. I think Casey maybe
Casey.
has one, and
And then
maybe
I think
April.
there's some character called like Fuginoid or something like
Hmm.
that. It's like a robot. I don't
Okay.
know who he is, but he has a one shot as well.
Okay.
It's 8 issues total.
And so
So
these are really just kind of like extra fluff to the main IDW series, but it seemed
mhm.
like a good way to sort of, dip your toe in the water of like, I don't know if I'm ready to return to Turtles yet. Let me see. And I think after
Right.
reading this, I'm like, okay, IDW, you've got my
Yeah.
trust. Let's see what you've got. So I'd be interested to read more as well.
I do think the mainline book has a different writer too. So maybe if some of the choices here were felt kind of surfacey to you or whatever, it might, that may not matter in the main series
Hmm.
because it might be a totally different writer. So
Yeah, that happens a lot with one shots like this. I mean, we've seen the same thing on like Edge of Spider-Verse that we reviewed a
mhm.
while back, and things like that, where when it's a one shot, it's like you have a one and done. You have a chance to get in, tell a story, get out, and then that's the end.
Right.
And depending on what it's for, like Edge of Spider-Verse was just meant to be like another kind of preamble of, hey, here's some sort of side things that we just want to show you, but really this
Mhm.
is just in addition to the story that we're already telling, and it doesn't really matter. It's more just a almost like a cash grab to make some more money off of,
Well,
because
sure.
more that put that title in there. But at the same time, it's kind of nice to sort of like I said before, edge yourself into it and just say, this is something I'd really be interested in.
To edge yourself into the Spider Verse.
Yes, exactly. Well, earlier you said Donnie dons a costume, and I was like, he dons a costume.
Dawn of the Donatello.
At least he's not Don Corneo.
Oh man, that guy's a trip.
Yes. Anyway, I that's pretty much it for the history. There's a lot more that you can read online, but basically, the creators kind of had a fallout, like Mike said earlier. One of them wanted to say very strict to the original lore. The other one's like, hey, as long as it makes us money, let them do whatever they want. And I think it
Right.
I think it was Laird who wanted to stay, a lot closer to the original because he has a blog, and so in March 2012 he had said, the animated series would have been very different if I had made the key creative decisions. We wouldn't have these moronic henchmen. The Shredder wouldn't have been, a goofball. He would have been
hmm
seriously malevolent. April wouldn't have been a ditzy reporter and damsel in distress all of the time. The Turtles wouldn't have been so ridiculously obsessed with pizza. The Shredder wouldn't have been so the Shredder has a business and it's called Ninja Pizza, and the turtles eat there, and it's just like so goofy. And there's this clip that I used in one of the social media posts that's like they're all sitting there eating their pizza, and Raph's like, how could you even look at a pizza after all this that went down? And he's like, I don't want to look at it, I just want to eat it.
Oh my god.
They were just full of corny jokes, and they were so bad. And but that's what was fun about them, especially as a kid growing up, is like
hmm
it was funny, it was simple humor, they were goofy, but they were distinct enough that I don't know, they made an impression.
It was something different. It definitely, coming out of the era of like He-Man and GI Joe and stuff like that, it felt very modern at the
Mhm.
time. Hearing them use phrases like cowabunga and radical and totally
Cool.
tubular,
Yeah.
and all of that. I don't know. It felt very current at the time in a way that some of those other shows maybe didn't. So I don't know. They really just hit with the right thing at the right time, I think.
Yeah.
And it took off into what it became. So obviously video games are something that, were also a huge part of Ninja Turtle nostalgia. For me, well, you associate it with pizza. Honestly, a lot of pizza places had arcade machines, and
Mhm.
there was a Godfather's Pizza in Macomb that had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game. So that was the first place that I saw it, and I didn't have a quarter. So I'm just like watching the demo on the screen, just blown away by the graphics and like hoping somebody else will come up with money and play the game so I can like see it, you know, because I'm just like an 8 or 9 year old kid. I don't have any money on me, but I remember just being totally blown away by the look and the sound and everything of that old arcade machine. And then a few years later, on the Nintendo Entertainment System, Konami released the arcade game adaptation, and my friend that lived down the street had that, so I got to play it back in the day. Now we recently played the original Ninja Turtles game from the NES, and that is brutally punishing.
Yeah.
I think kind of infamous as one of the harder NES games ever made.
Hmm.
So
That was my so there are two video game like series that I never got into, and one of them is Turtles and the other one is
Mhm.
Mega Man, and it's really for the same reason, is because I had a friend who had a computer and had computer versions of a lot of the games, and I want to say he had a computer version of the original Turtles game, but maybe he had a Nintendo as well. I don't remember,
Okay.
but I remember playing both of those or watching him play those and being like, these games are really hard, like unforgiving. You're dead. It's over. You just lost,
Yeah.
however much gameplay and getting around all these enemies and stuff on the screen. And then it would like flicker and then you couldn't see. It was just so freaking hard that I was just like, video games don't seem that interesting to me. So I never played a Turtles game, I think, since then. I never played Mega Man. Obviously, my friendship with you is how I've been exposed to all the Mega Man
Mhm.
games. But I mean, we would basically just be like, all right, well, Mike, you play Mega Man and I'm going to sit and watch because it's fun to watch you play. And he's like,
Right.
hey, you want to play a little bit? And I'm like, that looks really hard now. I'll play Mega Man 3 and let you hold the second controller so that way I get like the super jumps and stuff
Oh,
like that.
yeah.
I would play that, but other than that, it's just something about those being super hard just
Man,
turned me off to them.
you know what though? Like that era of games, I have so much nostalgia for the weird kind of codes that you would input on a
Oh
second
man.
controller or
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like that was such a thing back in the day. I was reading in the Cowabunga collection just some of the manuals in the game earlier today, and they were saying plug in a second controller in order to enter some of these codes, and I was like, oh my gosh,
Hmm.
that is a
Up,
blast
down,
from the
down, left, right,
past.
start, Mortal
Yeah,
Kombat and
the Konami code.
all that
that's
stuff.
the so kind of on model with that discussion a little bit. I think we are going to record us doing some co-op gameplay in the Cowabunga collection.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be something that hopefully will be fun for you guys to see on YouTube, where it's a little less structured. We're not just talking about a specific topic. We're just, getting our butts kicked by the shredder and Foot Clan.
Or putting
So,
on God mode and kicking their butts and not
yeah.
breaking a sweat.
Although I will note they took out all of the Pizza Huts in that, which that's
Oh.
another place where their marketing was really successful
Hmm.
because you play the Ninja Turtles game, it says Pizza Hut freaking everywhere.
Yeah.
So,
You could actually go to Pizza Hut back in the day, and if you ordered
mhm.
like a large pizza, you'd get a VHS copy of, I don't know if it was part of the animated show or what it was, but they were giving away a VHS with a pizza at Pizza Hut. I never got one though.
Right. I didn't either, but
Yeah.
I remember that stuff. That and like the book it promotion from school where like you could read and then they would give you a free personal pan pizza for
Oh
reading.
yeah. Pizza Hut looked very distinct back then, but
It
now it just
did.
looks like any other place. It's
Yeah,
so
it's just kind of a
they have
generic.
the red roof, but then that's it. Like where are those like 80s glasses with like the texture and they're like all red. And
Mhm.
so you put whatever drink in there and it's just like super dark and it's like, it's like transparent aluminum. It's like super thick, but it's like really
Yeah.
hardy.
Yeah, Pizza
So,
Hut definitely had a like its own unique vibe. It was
mhm.
it was almost like walking into like a dive bar or something, but you get pizza there instead.
That and
So,
Taco Bell looked like the inside of a bus with the like swirly blue and white
oh my gosh, Taco Bell
purple.
looked like the opening sequence to Saved by the Bell. That's what it looked like. It was just crazy.
Yeah.
That carpet with all the 90s like colors and shapes and all that stuff. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So yeah, I hope you've had fun going down memory lane with us. Make sure you tune in to our other after shows, or just the continuation of this, and
Yeah, just some
some
more bonus stuff.
bonus stuff and gameplay, and hope that you enjoy it. And then otherwise, we'll see you next time.
All right. Party on, dude.
Party on! Yeah, totally tubular, cowabunga.
Radical.
Radical.
We like
Comics.
because they have no